Mr. Marceau, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I'm here on behalf of the CIJA, the Centre for Israel and Jewish Affairs. I'll be frank, I'll be direct. In Canada, there is a crisis of anti-Semitism.
Recent rise of anti-Semitism, terrifying. And he's right. Since October 7th, we've seen in Toronto a 93% rise in anti-Semitism crimes, the majority of which directed at the Jewish community. In Vancouver, reports of anti-Semitism rose by 62% in 2023, and 70% of those occurred after October 7th. In Ottawa, the number of hate-related crimes and incidents rose in 2023 by 20%. And in Ottawa, 1.4% of the population is Jewish, and the Jews were the target of 27% of those crimes and incidents. À Montréal, des coups de feu sont tirés sur des écoles juives.
In Montreal, shots were fired at Jewish schools. Molotov cocktails were thrown at a Montreal synagogue and other synagogues in Montreal Community Centre.
In Toronto, synagogues are picketed. Demonstrations take place at around Jewish neighborhoods for the sole purpose of intimidating its residents. Jewish-owned businesses are vandalized. Dans nos rues et dans nos campus,
in our streets, in our campuses, we hear the apology for terrorism and violence.
Very heart of Canadian democracy, on April 18th, we heard praises for October 7th. Quote, our resistance attacks are proof that we're almost free. Quote, October 7th is proof that we're almost free. Long live October 7th. Long live the resistance. Long live the Intifada. Long live every form of resistance. On Parliament Hill. Le 28 octobre dernier à Montréal.
On October 28 in Montreal, a controversial imam was given the mic, and in Arabic he declared, Allah take care of these Zionist aggressors, Allah deal with the enemies of the people of Gaza, Allah identify them all and then exterminate them and spare none of them. Last week, we learned that he would not be charged.
Still in Montreal, yells of death to the Jews were heard in front of a Jewish school. It got so bad, the authorities were so passive that the only solution the community found was to go to the court to get injunctions to protect its institution. Let that sink in. In extraordinary course, those injunctions were granted and then extended and extended again. La situation sur les campus est très mauvaise.
The situation on university campuses is very bad. I won't repeat what you've heard from students here and last week and other panels.
On campus, that CIJA's legal task force is supporting a student at Toronto Metropolitan University for fostering a poison anti-Semitic environment. We are suing TMU. TMU breached its contract with her, breached its duties of care to her, discriminated against her by failing to apply its own policies and procedure explicitly designed to protect students like her from anti-Semitic environment. We are putting universities on notice. There are and will be consequences for allowing anti-Semitism to take root on campus. Je pourrais vous parler de la situation dans les syndicats.
I could talk to you about the situation in unions and in our schools, where we have to protect students. I don't have much time, so I'll just stick to my 8 recommendations.
Leaders must lead. That means that there are laws on the books to deal with the current situation, and those are not applied. The Justice Minister must give clear direction that laws that are already on the books be applied. Better training for courts, for police and legal system is desperately needed. 2. Interdire le groupe Samidun.
2. Ban the Vancouver-based Samidun group for its direct and open links with terrorist groups. 3.
Legislation, also known as Bubbles legislation. There is a role for Ottawa to play here. 4. Lutter contre la...
4. Combat online harm, and we'll be debating this issue later.
Use the new anti-racism strategy and ensure no government funding goes to those promoting or platforming hate. In other words, no more Leif Marouf. 6. Interdire l'affichage des symboles.
6. Ban the display of symbols of terrorist organizations listed in Canadian law. 7.
Asterisk organization. You voted twice for this. Now it's time to do it. 8. Meilleure collection des données relatives.
Improve the collection and communication of hate crime data.
Chair, there's a crisis of anti-Semitism in this country. Words are not enough. We need action from you now.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Madame Kersner-Roberts, s'il vous plaît, for 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you so much, Madam Chair. My name is Jamie Kersner-Roberts. I'm the Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy at the Simon Wiesenthal Centre based in Toronto. I feel very privileged to be here today, to have the opportunity to speak to this room of esteemed lawmakers and alongside some truly fantastic community advocates like Mr. Marceau, Mr. Robertson, and Special Envoy Lyons. So thank you for having me. Since October 7th, we have seen in our country an explosion of anti-Semitic hate, the likes of which we have not seen before. And at ground zero of this problem is our nation's universities, which have served as fertile grounds for the mobilization and recruitment of anti-Semitic hate groups, where students, faculty, and staff have been able to engage in the ugliest of hate speech and glorification of violence and terrorism against Jews without any fear whatsoever of consequence. Jewish students have increasingly found themselves targeted by abuse from their peers, singled out by their professors, subjected to harassment and discrimination, fearful that they will be discriminated against when it comes to grading. Students, in some cases, no longer feel safe physically, even crossing their own campuses, as they know they will have to pass by protests, encampments, and demonstrations, which are perpetrating hateful rhetoric. With respect to university administrations, we have seen, unfortunately, for the most part, that they have leaned in to political cowardice. We have seen an abject failure to hold accountable students, faculty, and staff who have perpetrated the most ugly of hatreds, who have glorified the most ugly of terrorist acts. We have seen an effect on our campuses, a failure to make the strategic decisions to ensure that campuses remain safe for Jewish students, a failure of university leadership. This is not the first time in the long history of Jewish people that we have seen universities become a breeding ground for the vilest anti-Semitism, a breeding ground for anti-Semitic hate groups. We have seen this all before in our long history, and we know where it leads. And this is why we know that the time for action is now. Simon Wiesenthal, he's the namesake of my organization, a Holocaust survivor who dedicated his life to justice. He said that freedom is not a gift from heaven. It is something we need to fight for every day. I thank you all for joining me here today as we work together to fight for freedom for all students on our campus, including Jewish students.
Thank you. Thank you very much.